What if the boy who had everything chose to lose it all? What if Draco Malfoy, the Slytherin prince raised in darkness, made one impossible choice that changed the entire course of the Wizarding War? Today we're diving deep into one of the most compelling what-if scenarios in Harry Potter history. This isn't just about a villain becoming a hero. This is about examining how one moment of courage could have reshaped destinies, saved lives, and proven that even those born into hatred can choose love. The Lightning Tower stands cold and merciless against the night sky. Draco Malfoy's wand trembles in his hand, pointed directly at Albus Dumbledore's heart. Everything in his life has led to this moment. Every lesson his father taught him, every sneer at Muggleborns, every cruel word spoken in the corridors of Hogwarts. The Dark Lord has given him a task, and failure means death, not just for him, but for his entire family. But as Dumbledore stands there, calm and understanding, offering him a way out, something breaks inside Draco Malfoy. In the original timeline, Snape arrives and completes the task Draco cannot. But what if, in those crucial seconds, Draco made a different choice? What if he lowered his wand and whispered the words that would change everything? Help me. Imagine Dumbledore's weathered hand reaching out, not in surrender, but in salvation. The headmaster had always known this moment might come. He'd seen the fear in Draco's eyes all year, watched the boy crumble under the weight of an impossible mission. Dumbledore's death was planned, yes, but plans can change. In this timeline, the headmaster makes a split-second decision. If Draco Malfoy is brave enough to choose mercy, then perhaps there's a greater purpose at work here. Perhaps this broken boy could be the key to understanding Voldemort's inner circle in ways the Order never could. Dumbledore doesn't lower his hands, but his eyes convey everything. Trust me, they say. One more time, trust me. And Draco, terrified and sobbing, does. The Death Eaters are storming through the castle. Bellatrix's manic laughter echoes through the corridors. Greyback thirsts for blood. The Carrows spread their particular brand of cruelty. They're coming for Dumbledore, coming to witness Draco's triumph or punish his failure. There's no time for lengthy explanations, no time for doubt. Dumbledore acts with the swift decisiveness that made him the greatest wizard of his age. A flick of his wand and Draco is bound in invisible chains, floating unconscious in the air. To anyone who sees them, it must look like Dumbledore has captured the young Death Eater. It's a performance, but one that might just save Draco's life. They flee through the castle's secret passages, passages even the marauders never found. Dumbledore knows Hogwarts better than anyone alive, and tonight that knowledge is the difference between life and death. Behind them, the sounds of battle rage. Order members fight Death Eaters. Spells light up the darkness. But Dumbledore doesn't stop, doesn't slow. He has precious cargo now, cargo that could change the war. They emerge near the Forbidden Forest, and with a crack that splits the night, they disapparate. When Bellatrix reaches the tower and finds it empty, her scream of rage can be heard across the grounds. Draco Malfoy has vanished, and with him Dumbledore. The Dark Lord will be furious. They arrive at a safe house that even most Order members don't know exists. It's a cottage on the edge of nowhere, protected by every enchantment Dumbledore could weave. When Draco wakes, he's on a simple bed in a sparse room. For a moment, he thinks it was all a dream, a desperate fantasy conjured by his terrified mind. But then he sees Dumbledore sitting in a worn armchair and reality crashes back. He's alive. The headmaster is alive. And Draco has just committed the ultimate betrayal against the Dark Lord. His family. Oh, Merlin, his family. The panic hits him like a physical blow. What has he done? What will happen to his mother? His father is already imprisoned in Azkaban. But his mother, his beautiful, protective mother who loves him more than life itself, what will Voldemort do to her? Dumbledore lets him cry, lets him rage, lets him scream about how he's ruined everything, how they'll all die now, how it would have been better if the headmaster had just let him die on that tower. But eventually the storm passes, as storms always do. Draco sits there, hollow and exhausted, and Dumbledore finally speaks. He explains, in his gentle but firm way, that Draco's choice on the tower was the bravest thing the boy has ever done. That choosing mercy in the face of death, choosing compassion when cruelty was demanded, that's what defines true courage. Not Gryffindor courage, perhaps, but something deeper. The courage to be better than what you were made to be. But courage doesn't pay the bills, doesn't protect families, doesn't win wars. Draco's voice is bitter when he asks what happens now. Does he hide here forever? Does he pretend the last 16 years of his life didn't happen? Dumbledore's expression grows serious. No, he says. Now comes the hard part. Now Draco has to decide if his moment of mercy was just that, a moment, or if it was the beginning of something more. The Order of the Phoenix is fighting a war against the darkest wizard of the age. They need every advantage they can get, and Draco Malfoy, whether he wants to admit it or not, is an advantage. He knows things, has seen things, understands the Death Eater organization from the inside in ways no spy ever could. Dumbledore looks at him with those piercing blue eyes and asks the question that will define everything that follows. Will you help us? Will you fight for the light? Draco's first instinct is to refuse. He's not a hero. He's not brave like Potter, or loyal like Weasley, or brilliant like Granger. He's a Malfoy, and Malfoys look after themselves. But even as he thinks it, the words ring hollow. Looking after himself is what got him here. Wand pointed at an old man's heart, tasked with murder at 16. Looking after himself meant becoming something he hated, piece by piece, choice by choice. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to try something different. His yes is barely a whisper, but Dumbledore hears it. The headmaster nods, satisfied, and tells Draco to rest. Tomorrow they'll begin the process of turning a Death Eater into an asset. Tomorrow Draco Malfoy joins the war for real. But tonight, for the first time in a year, he sleeps without nightmares. The next morning brings a visitor Draco never expected to see. Severus Snape arrives at the safe house, his face a mask of cold fury. For a moment, Draco thinks his godfather is here to kill him, to finish what Draco couldn't. But Dumbledore intervenes, explaining the situation. Snape's anger isn't directed at Draco's failure to kill. It's directed at the situation itself, at how close they came to disaster, at how the carefully laid plans almost crumbled. Snape had been ready to fulfill the unbreakable vow, to kill Dumbledore himself to protect both the headmaster's true wishes and Draco's soul. Now everything is different. Now Snape's position as Voldemort's most trusted follower is potentially compromised. If the Dark Lord discovers that Draco is alive and with Dumbledore, if he suspects that Snape let it happen, the potions master's usefulness as a double agent ends. Probably his life too. The three of them spend hours strategizing. They need a story, a narrative that explains what happened on the tower. They decide on this. Dumbledore overpowered Draco and escaped, but not before Snape arrived. Snape fought the headmaster, drove him off, but couldn't prevent him from taking Draco as a prisoner. It's thin, but it might work. The key is that Draco must be seen as a victim, not a defector. He's a captive, held by Dumbledore, possibly being interrogated. It gives Voldemort a reason to keep Narcissa alive as leverage. It gives them time, not much but some. Snape will report back to the Dark Lord, play his part. Meanwhile, Draco will begin working with the Order, carefully, quietly, until they can figure out how to use this unexpected asset without getting him killed. But before any of that can happen, Draco has to face the Order of the Phoenix itself. And that, it turns out, is almost as terrifying as facing Voldemort. Dumbledore calls an emergency meeting at Grimmauld Place. The members arrive one by one, confused and concerned. There are rumors flying everywhere about what happened at Hogwarts, about Death Eaters in the castle, about Dumbledore's disappearance. When they're all assembled, when every member of the Order is present, Dumbledore drops the bombshell. He's brought Draco Malfoy, and the boy wants to help them. The reaction is exactly what you'd expect. Chaos. Arthur Weasley stands up so fast his chair topples. Molly starts shouting about bringing a Death Eater into their headquarters. Moody's magical eye spins wildly as he reaches for his wand. Tonks looks shocked. Kingsley's hand is on his wand hilt. Lupin tries to calm everyone, but even he looks doubtful. And then there's the younger generation. Ron's face turns as red as his hair, and he starts yelling about Malfoy's years of cruelty, about every insult to Hermione, every sneer, every hex. Hermione herself looks calculating, dangerous even, her wand drawn and ready. Ginny stands with her arms crossed, fury in her eyes. And Harry. Harry Potter looks at Draco Malfoy with an expression so complex it's impossible to read. There's anger there, yes, years of rivalry, of hatred, of opposing sides. But there's something else too. Harry knows what it's like to be in an impossible position. He's seen Draco's fear in the bathroom, seen his hesitation. Some part of Harry, the part that always wants to save people even when they don't deserve it, sees a boy who tried to do the right thing. But that doesn't mean he trusts him. That doesn't mean any of this is okay. Dumbledore raises his hand for silence, and eventually, reluctantly, the Order quiets. He explains what happened on the tower, every detail. He explains Draco's choice, his courage in that moment. But he doesn't sugarcoat the rest. He tells them that Draco was a Death Eater, that he let Death Eaters into Hogwarts, that he's done terrible things. He's not asking them to forgive. He's asking them to be practical. They're losing this war. Voldemort grows stronger every day. They need advantages, and Draco represents a significant one. He knows the Death Eater operations, knows the families, knows how they think and plan. He knows the layout of Malfoy Manor, where meetings are held, where prisoners might be kept. This isn't about redemption. This is about survival. Mad-Eye Moody is the first to speak after Dumbledore finishes. His gravelly voice cuts through the tension. He wants to know how they can possibly trust Draco. The boy's a Malfoy, raised on lies and manipulation. How do they know this isn't a trick? How do they know Voldemort didn't send him here deliberately? It's a fair question, and Dumbledore has an answer. Veritaserum. They'll question Draco under Truth Serum, verify his story, confirm his intentions. If he's lying, they'll know. If he's a plant, they'll know. And if he's genuine, well, then they have a chance to gain something valuable. Draco submits to the Veritaserum questioning without protest. He knows it's the only way, knows he has no currency here except truth. Moody administers the potion himself, watching Draco's eyes glaze slightly as the serum takes effect. The questioning is brutal and thorough. They ask about his motivations, his loyalties, his knowledge of Death Eater operations. They ask about specific people, specific crimes. Did he torture anyone? Did he kill? What does he know about the Carrows, about Yaxley, about Roll? What about his Aunt Bellatrix? What can he tell them about Voldemort's plans? Draco answers everything, his voice flat and mechanical under the serum's influence. He admits to his cruelty at school, to his prejudice, to his cowardice. He admits that he doesn't know if he believes in their cause, doesn't know if he can ever be good. He only knows he doesn't want to be what Voldemort wanted to make him. A murderer, a monster. When the questioning ends, there's silence in the room. The truth has a weight to it that accusations don't. Not everyone is convinced. Molly Weasley still thinks it's too dangerous. Bill worries about the precedent it sets, but others see the potential. Lupin points out that Draco is a child, someone who can still change. Tonks mentions that her mother was a black, that she understands how poisonous those old families can be. But that doesn't mean people can't break free. Kingsley, ever practical, notes that they'd be fools not to use the intelligence Draco can provide. Harry remains silent through most of the debate, watching Draco, trying to understand what he's feeling. Finally, Dumbledore calls for a vote. It's close, but the decision is made. Draco can stay. He can work with the Order, but he'll be watched constantly. One wrong move, one sign of betrayal, and it's over. The first few weeks are agonizing. Draco is essentially under house arrest at Grimmauld Place. He can't leave, can't contact anyone, can barely move without someone watching him. Moody insists on constant supervision, and various Order members rotate shifts. Some are coldly professional, like Kingsley. Others are openly hostile. Ron can barely stand to be in the same room and makes that abundantly clear. Hermione watches him like a hawk, ready to stun him at the first sign of treachery. The worst is Harry, though. Harry's carefully neutral face, his refusal to engage beyond simple questions, that somehow hurts more than Ron's open hostility. Draco tells himself he doesn't care, that he never liked Potter anyway, but the lie feels thin. His days are filled with debriefings. Lupin is usually the one who questions him, patient and methodical. They go through everything Draco knows. The Death Eater hierarchy, who reports to whom, who has the Dark Lord's favor, who's falling out of favor. Draco sketches maps of Malfoy Manor, marks the secret passages, the rooms used for meetings, the dungeons where prisoners are held. He explains the wards around the property, though he admits he doesn't know all of them. His father never taught him everything. He talks about the meetings he attended, the ones where he stood silent in the corner while the adults discussed war strategy. At the time, he'd felt important, included. Now, relating those memories, he just feels sick. He tells them about Bellatrix, about her particular brand of insanity, about how even the other Death Eaters fear her. He explains that she's utterly devoted to Voldemort, more than his father ever was, more than anyone. She'd die for the Dark Lord without hesitation, and she'd kill her own family if he commanded it. Draco's voice goes quiet when he talks about her. She's his aunt, but she terrifies him, always has. He tells them about the Carrows, Amicus, and Alecto, about their love of torture and cruelty for its own sake. He tells them about Yaxley's ambitions, about how the man wants more power, more recognition. These details might seem small, but Lupin assures him they're valuable. Understanding the personalities, the rivalries, the weak points in the Death Eater organization, all of it helps. But the hardest sessions are when they ask about his family. Lupin is gentle, but he needs to know, where does Draco's loyalty lie? If it came down to saving the Order or saving his mother, what would he choose? Draco doesn't have a good answer. He wants to say he'd choose the right thing, choose saving innocent lives over one person. But that one person is his mother, the only one who ever truly loved him. The truth is, he doesn't know. He hopes he never has to find out. They ask about his father, and that's easier somehow. Lucius is in Azkaban, and Draco's feelings about him are complicated. There's love there, the reflexive love of a child for a parent, but there's also resentment. Resentment that his father's failures put Draco in this position, that Lucius's pride and ambition destroyed their family. Meanwhile, Harry Potter is dealing with his own complicated feelings. He watches Draco during these sessions, studies him when the Slytherin doesn't realize anyone's looking. Harry spent 6 years hating Malfoy, and that hatred doesn't just disappear. But he's also seeing something he never expected: vulnerability, real fear, real regret. Draco Malfoy, the boy who swaggered through Hogwarts like he owned it, looks broken. Harry knows what broken looks like. He's seen it in Sirius's eyes in his own mirror after Cedric died. The question is whether this broken thing can be put back together into something better, or if it's too late. Harry doesn't have an answer. He's not sure he wants one. One night, Harry can't sleep. The events at Hogwarts, the war, the pressure of being the chosen one, it all weighs on him. He goes downstairs to the kitchen for water and finds Draco already there, sitting at the table in the dark. For a moment, they just stare at each other, all their years of antagonism heavy in the air. Then Draco does something unexpected. He apologizes. Not for everything, not with excuses or explanations. Just a simple, tired apology for the years of cruelty, for Hermione especially. He tells Harry that he was taught to hate Muggleborns, that it was drilled into him from birth. But that's not an excuse. He chose to be cruel when he could have been kind. He chose to make Hermione's life hell when he could have just left her alone. Harry doesn't respond immediately. He gets his water, sits down across from Draco, and asks why. Why did you let us into your family's manor that time? You could have identified me. Why did you hesitate to kill Dumbledore? Why are you really here? Draco's answer is honest in a way that surprises both of them. He says he's not brave like Harry, not heroic. He's here because being a Death Eater was killing him, piece by piece. Every time he had to stand there and watch someone tortured, every time he had to pretend he enjoyed the cruelty, something inside him died. By the time he was standing on that tower with his wand pointed at Dumbledore, there was barely anything left. He chose mercy because he had nothing left to lose except his humanity, and he discovered he wanted to keep that. It's not a grand reason. It's not noble. But it's true. Harry looks at him for a long moment, then nods. It's not forgiveness, not yet. But it's understanding. That's a start. The dynamic at Grimmauld Place shifts gradually after that. Ron is still hostile, but he stops actively trying to pick fights. Hermione starts asking Draco questions during the debriefings, testing his knowledge of dark magic, comparing it with what she's learned. Draco is surprised to find that she challenges him intellectually in ways no one ever has. They're both brilliant, both competitive, and their debates over magical theory become almost normal. Ginny thaws a bit when she sees Draco helping Hermione research Horcruxes, his knowledge of dark artifacts proving useful. The older Order members start to see him less as a threat and more as a resource. Moody still doesn't trust him, probably never will, but even he admits the intelligence is valuable. But while Draco is finding an uneasy place with the Order, the situation outside is deteriorating. Voldemort is furious about Draco's capture. Snape reports back that the Dark Lord ranted for hours, torturing several Death Eaters in his rage. But more concerning, he's taken Narcissa Malfoy into his custody. She's not imprisoned, not yet, but she's essentially a hostage. Voldemort makes it clear, if Draco isn't returned, if he betrays any Death Eater secrets, Narcissa will pay the price. It's a calculated move, and it works exactly as intended. Draco becomes almost frantic with worry. Every piece of information he gives the Order, every secret he reveals, it all comes with the knowledge that he's potentially signing his mother's death warrant. Dumbledore tries to reassure him. They're working on a plan to extract Narcissa to get her somewhere safe. But it's complicated. Malfoy Manor is too well protected, and Voldemort himself visits frequently now. They need time, need to plan carefully. Draco understands the logic, but logic doesn't help when you're terrified for your mother's life. He starts having nightmares again, worse than before. Dreams where he's back on the tower, but this time it's his mother standing where Dumbledore stood, and Voldemort is forcing him to kill her. He wakes up screaming, and more than once, it's Harry who comes to check on him, who sits awkwardly on the edge of his bed and reminds him it was just a dream. The irony of Harry Potter comforting him isn't lost on either of them. The breakthrough comes from an unexpected source. Creature, the ancient house elf who serves the Black family, mentions something about the old methods of communication between pure-blood families. Before the Flu Network was regulated, before owls could be tracked, the old families used house elves to carry messages. It was untraceable, completely secret. Draco realizes that he might be able to contact his mother through the Malfoy family elf. It's risky, incredibly risky, but Hermione does some research and confirms it might work. The elf's loyalty is to the family, not to Voldemort. If they can reach the elf, get a message to Narcissa, she might be able to get herself to safety. They spend days crafting the message. It has to be brief, has to be phrased carefully in case Voldemort has ways of monitoring even house elf magic. Finally, Draco settles on something simple. Mother, I'm safe. Trust Snape. Garden path at midnight, full moon. It's cryptic enough that Voldemort wouldn't understand even if he intercepted it, but Narcissa will. The garden path refers to a secret exit from Malfoy Manor that even Lucius doesn't know about. Narcissa's great-aunt had it built, a escape route for the women of the family. Midnight on the full moon is in 3 days. If Narcissa can get to that exit, if Snape can be there to meet her, they might pull this off. It's a long shot, but it's the best they have. Creature agrees to carry the message, disappearing with a crack that sounds like a gunshot in the quiet house. The 3 days that follow are the longest of Draco's life. They don't know if the message got through, don't know if Narcissa received it, understood it, can act on it. They don't even know if she's still alive. Draco barely eats, barely sleeps. Harry and Hermione take turns staying with him, a silent vigil that Draco doesn't acknowledge but is desperately grateful for. Ron even thaws enough to play a few games of wizard's chess, though they don't talk much. On the night of the full moon, everyone at Grimmauld Place is tense. Snape has gone to Malfoy Manor, playing his role as the concerned colleague checking on Narcissa. The plan is for him to suggest a walk in the gardens, to get her away from the main house. If Voldemort or other Death Eaters are there, it won't work. But if they're lucky, if timing and fate align, maybe, just maybe, they can pull this off. Midnight comes and goes. 1 o'clock. 2. Draco is pacing the kitchen like a caged animal and no one tries to stop him. At 2:15, there's a crack of apparition outside. Dumbledore moves to the door, wand ready, everyone else taking defensive positions. The wards identify the arrivals as Snape and one other. The door opens and Narcissa Malfoy stands there looking haggard and terrified but alive. Draco doesn't remember moving, doesn't remember crossing the room, but suddenly he's holding his mother and they're both crying. Narcissa clutches him like she'll never let go, whispering his name over and over. The Order members give them privacy, filing out of the kitchen, though Moody insists on checking Narcissa for tracking spells and dark magic first. She's clean. She's really here. She's safe. Mother and son talk for hours that night. Narcissa tells Draco about the last few weeks, about Voldemort's cold fury, about how he kept her close, always watching, always threatening. She tells him that she knew something had changed in her son on that tower, that even if he'd succeeded, she would have lost him. She'd seen it happening all year, watched the light die in his eyes. She tells him that she's proud of him for choosing mercy, even though it put them all in danger. Because mercy, true mercy, is the hardest magic of all. Draco tells her about the Order, about working with them, about Harry Potter sitting with him during nightmares. Narcissa is quiet for a long moment, then says that perhaps the Potter boy understands more than they ever gave him credit for. Perhaps they all need to start seeing more clearly. With Narcissa safe, Draco's value to the Order increases. He's no longer paralyzed by fear for his mother, no longer holding back information to protect her. He tells them everything, every secret, every piece of knowledge he possesses. The Order learns about the vanishing cabinet connection between Hogwarts and Borgin and Berks. Though the cabinet at Hogwarts is destroyed now, knowing the method helps them understand Death Eater strategy. Draco provides details about Voldemort's inner circle, who's truly loyal and who's just scared. He talks about the Death Eater raids he witnessed, the patterns they follow, the ways they choose targets. All of this intelligence gets passed to the Aurors still loyal to the Ministry, to other Order members in the field. Lives are saved because of Draco's information. It's a strange feeling, knowing that his words, his knowledge from such a dark place is being used for good. But intelligence isn't the same as action, and Draco grows frustrated with being cooped up at Grimmauld Place. He wants to do more, wants to fight actively. Harry points out, not unkindly, that Draco has barely any combat training. Being a Death Eater's son didn't include learning to duel properly. It included learning dark curses and intimidation, but actual defensive magic, actual battle tactics? Draco is woefully unprepared. This assessment stings, but it's accurate. So Harry, with Dumbledore's blessing, begins training him. Along with Ron and Hermione, they run through defensive spells, offensive magic that isn't dark, practical combat scenarios. Draco discovers he's a quick learner when he's not sabotaging himself with arrogance. He and Harry develop an odd rhythm, trading spells, testing each other. Ron still grumbles about training a former Death Eater, but even he admits Draco's improving fast. Meanwhile, the wizarding world spirals further into chaos. The Ministry falls completely under Voldemort's control. Muggle-born registration begins. Hogwarts becomes a nightmare under Snape's headmastership and the Carrow's cruelty. The Order is scrambling, trying to protect people, trying to fight back, but they're outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Harry, Ron, and Hermione are planning to leave on their Horcrux hunt, something they've told Draco nothing about. He's not fully trusted with that knowledge yet, but he knows something big is coming, can feel the tension in the house. The night before they leave, Harry finds Draco in the library, reading through a book on protective charms. They talk, really talk, for the first time. Harry admits he's scared, though he doesn't say of what. Draco admits he doesn't know how to be good, doesn't know if he can ever make up for the person he was. Harry looks at him and says something that sticks with Draco. We're all just making it up as we go along. None of us know what we're doing. We just keep trying to do better than yesterday. After the trio leaves on their mission, Grimmauld Place feels emptier. Draco continues working with the Order, going on small missions now that he's proven himself somewhat capable. He helps evacuate Muggle-born families, providing inside knowledge about Death Eater patrol patterns. He works with Hermione's organization helping magical creatures, using his family name to negotiate with goblins who remember the Malfoys' business dealings. It's strange, using his privilege for good instead of intimidation. He finds he prefers it. On one mission, he runs into Pansy Parkinson, his ex-girlfriend. She's with Death Eaters, and when she sees him, the betrayal in her eyes is devastating. She tries to capture him, and he has to fight her, has to stun his former friend. It's the first time he truly understands the cost of his choice. He's not just fighting against Voldemort. He's fighting against everyone he used to know, everyone he used to call friend. The months that follow are brutal. The war intensifies. Death Eaters grow bolder. The Order loses members. Draco is there when they bring back the bodies, when they mourn people he barely knew but who died fighting for the world he's now part of. He sees Molly Weasley cry over fallen Order members, sees Arthur's grief. He understands, in a way he never did before, what war actually costs. It's not glory or power or proving superiority. It's funerals and empty chairs and children who grow up without parents. His own father, still imprisoned in Azkaban, seems like a stranger now. The man who taught him that Malfoys are better, that pure blood matters, that strength is all that counts. That man was wrong about everything. Draco wishes he could tell him that. Wishes he could make Lucius understand. But some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. Then comes the news that changes everything. The trio has been captured. Harry, Ron, and Hermione are being held at Malfoy Manor. The Order goes into crisis mode, planning a rescue, but they need time to organize, to gather forces. Time that Harry and the others might not have. Draco knows that manor better than anyone. He knows the dungeons, knows the guard rotations, knows the family elf. And he knows that if Bellatrix is there, if she's in charge, the prisoners have hours at most before something terrible happens. He makes a decision that surprises everyone, especially himself. He's going in, alone, before the Order can mount a proper rescue. It's suicide, Moody growls. It's brave, Lupin says quietly. It's necessary, Draco says. These are his people now. This is his family's house, his family's sin. He has to try. He convinces them by explaining that he can apparate past some of the wards, can get into the manor through servant passages that Death Eaters won't be watching. He can reach the dungeons, maybe free the prisoners, Get them out before anyone knows what's happening. It's a long shot, but the order is out of good options. Dumbledore looks at him for a long moment, then nods. Be careful, he says. Come back alive. Narcissa grips her son's hand, terror in her eyes, but she doesn't try to stop him. She knows he has to do this, has to prove to himself that he's truly changed. Draco disapparates with a crack, leaving behind the safety of Grimmauld Place for the nightmare of his childhood home. He appears in the servant passages, his heart hammering so hard he's sure someone will hear it. The manor feels both intimately familiar and utterly foreign. He moves through passages he used to run through as a child, but now they feel like enemy territory. He can hear voices from the main rooms, Bellatrix's distinctive mad laugh, other Death Eaters talking. He makes it to the dungeon entrance, and there's Luna Lovegood and Ollivander already imprisoned, along with Griphook the Goblin. His heart sinks. If Harry and the others are upstairs, if they're being interrogated, he's running out of time. He stuns the guard, a Death Eater he doesn't recognize, and opens the cells. Luna looks at him with those strange, dreamy eyes and says, "Hello, Draco? I thought you might come." She's not surprised, not afraid. It's so very Luna that Draco almost laughs hysterically. He tells them they need to leave now, but Luna insists they wait for Harry. He's upstairs with Hermione and Ron. Bellatrix has Hermione. Draco feels sick. Bellatrix with Hermione means torture, means the Cruciatus curse, means horrors he doesn't want to imagine. He makes another split-second decision. He tells Luna, Ollivander, and Griphook to wait in the passage, hidden. Then he does something insane. He walks upstairs, into the drawing room, into the heart of Death Eater territory. He smooths his expression into the aristocratic mask he wore for 16 years and steps through the door like he belongs there. The scene that greets him is worse than he imagined. Hermione is on the floor, twitching from the after-effects of the Cruciatus curse, her screams still echoing in the air. Bellatrix stands over her, wand raised for another round. Harry and Ron are restrained by other Death Eaters, forced to watch. When Draco enters, everyone freezes. Bellatrix whirls, her face transforming from manic glee to shock to rage in seconds. "Draco," she hisses. Her little nephew, the traitor. The Dark Lord will be so pleased. But Draco doesn't flinch, doesn't show fear. He looks at his aunt and lies with every ounce of Malfoy arrogance he possesses. He tells her that Dumbledore kept him prisoner, that he escaped, that he's been trying to find his way back for months. He makes up a story about memory charms, about being held at a safe house, about finally breaking free. His voice is cold, bored even, exactly the tone Lucius would use. "This is beneath me," his posture says. And incredibly impossibly, Bellatrix hesitates. She wants to believe him. He's her nephew, her blood. The alternative, that a Malfoy would willingly betray the Dark Lord, is unthinkable. But she's not stupid. She asks questions, rapid fire, designed to trip him up. Where was he held? How did he escape? What has Dumbledore done to him? Draco answers with partial truths wrapped in lies, using his knowledge of the Order to make it convincing. He mentions Grimmauld Place, knowing Bellatrix can't access it to verify. He describes Order members in ways that make it sound like he was observing them as a prisoner. He weaves truth and fiction so skillfully that even he almost believes it. This is what Malfoys do, he realizes. They manipulate. They deceive. For the first time in his life, he's using those skills for something that matters. But Bellatrix isn't fully convinced. She turns to Harry Potter, still restrained, and asks him if Draco is telling the truth. Harry looks at Draco, and for a second that stretches into eternity, their eyes meet. Harry could end this with a single word. Could reveal Draco's deception, condemn him, probably get them all killed. But Harry has always been too good at reading people, too good at seeing potential. He looks at Draco Malfoy, Death Eater's son, standing in his family's manor, clearly terrified, but standing anyway, and makes a choice that mirrors Draco's choice on the tower. He lies. Potter tells Bellatrix that yes, Draco was their prisoner, that Dumbledore questioned him endlessly, that the boy seemed broken by it. It's brilliant because it explains any changes in Draco, any hesitation or fear. He was tortured by the Order. Of course he's different. Bellatrix accepts this, though suspicion still lingers in her mad eyes. She turns back to Hermione, ready to continue the interrogation, and Draco knows he's running out of time. He needs to get them out, all of them, but how? Then he hears it. A small crack from somewhere in the house. Dobby. The house elf has come, probably called by Harry in desperation. Draco realizes this is their chance. He moves closer to Harry and Ron, pretending to examine the prisoners, and in a moment, when the other Death Eaters are distracted by Bellatrix's ranting, he whispers a single word, Dobby. Harry's eyes widen fractionally in understanding. What happens next is chaos. Dobby appears in the drawing room with multiple loud cracks, grabbing people, disapparating them. Bellatrix shrieks in fury, throwing curses wildly. Draco grabs Hermione, who's still barely conscious, and feels the pull of disapparition. But Bellatrix's knife flies through the air and pain explodes in Draco's shoulder as the blade bites deep. Then they're gone, landing in a heap on a beach somewhere, waves crashing nearby. Dobby managed to get everyone out. Harry, Ron, Hermione, Luna, Ollivander, Griphook, and Draco. The little elf looks proud of himself for approximately 3 seconds before he notices the knife embedded in his chest. Bellatrix's knife, meant for Harry or perhaps for Draco, found Dobby instead. They watch helplessly as the elf dies in Harry's arms, his last words about being a free elf, about friends. Draco has never cried over a house elf before, never even considered them worthy of grief. But watching this creature die, this being who saved them all despite everything, something cracks in his chest. Dobby was braver than most wizards, Draco knew. Braver than Draco himself. They bury him on the beach, Harry digging the grave by hand, refusing magic. Draco helps, his injured shoulder screaming, blood soaking his shirt. Hermione, recovering slowly, watches them work together. 2 boys who should be enemies, digging a grave for a house elf. The war has changed them all in ways they never expected. Shell Cottage becomes their refuge. Bill and Fleur take them in, tend their wounds, ask few questions. Draco's shoulder wound is deep but not fatal, and Fleur patches it with a combination of healing charms and salves. Hermione is physically unharmed but mentally scarred from the Cruciatus curse. She has nightmares. Just like Draco, they sit together sometimes in the early morning hours. 2 people traumatized by the same woman finding unexpected comfort in shared silence. Ron hovers over Hermione protectively, and Draco gives them space, understanding that his presence, however changed he might be, is still a reminder of what happened. Harry seeks Draco out. They walk along the beach, and Harry asks why. Why did you come? Why did you risk everything? Draco doesn't have a good answer. He just knew he had to. These were his people now, broken, confused, still figuring out where he fits, but his people. They tell him about the Horcruxes finally, about Voldemort's split soul, about the quest to destroy the pieces and make him mortal. Draco listens, his mind racing. He knows dark magic, studied it his whole life. He might be able to help, might know things even Hermione hasn't found in books. They discuss the cup that was in Bellatrix's vault at Gringotts. Draco confirms that yes, his aunt was obsessed with that vault, visited it constantly, was paranoid about its security. If there's a Horcrux there, getting to it will be nearly impossible. But nearly impossible isn't the same as completely impossible. They start planning, and for the first time, Draco is part of the planning, not an outsider looking in. His knowledge of Gringotts' security, his understanding of how pure-blood families think, it all becomes useful. The Gringotts break-in is absolutely insane. Draco poses as a random wizard, polyjuiced into someone unrecognizable, while Harry hides under the invisibility cloak and Hermione transforms into Bellatrix. It's deeply weird watching Hermione pretend to be his aunt, mimicking that imperious cruelty. They bluff their way into the vault with Griphook's help, find the cup among the treasures, and then everything goes wrong. The thief's downfall washes away their disguises, and suddenly they're fugitives in the heart of Gringotts. The dragon, the blind dragon that guards the deepest vaults, becomes their escape route. They free it, ride it up through the bank in a scene of utter destruction, and burst out into the London sky on dragonback. It's terrifying and exhilarating, and when they finally crash land in a lake miles away, Draco is laughing hysterically. He just robbed Gringotts. He rode a dragon. His father would die of shame, and that makes it even better. But their victory is short-lived. Voldemort knows they're hunting Horcruxes now. The break-in made that clear. He'll be checking on the others, securing them, making them harder to reach. Worse, he might realize his mortality is threatened and become even more dangerous. The trio explains that there's one Horcrux they know is at Hogwarts, something connected to Ravenclaw. They need to get into the castle, search for it, destroy it. But Hogwarts is under complete Death Eater control now. The Carrows rule with torture and fear. Snape is headmaster, playing his role as Voldemort's loyal servant. Getting in will be nearly impossible. Getting out alive even less likely. But they have to try. The final battle is coming. They can all feel it. This is the endgame. Draco insists on coming with them to Hogwarts. He knows the castle as well as they do. Knows the secret passages, the hidden rooms. More than that, he needs to face what he helped destroy. He let Death Eaters into Hogwarts once before. Now he's going to help drive them out. They apparate to Hogsmeade, sneak into the Hogshead, and reunite with Aberforth Dumbledore. The old man looks at Draco with a mixture of surprise and grudging respect. "Heard you switch sides," he grunts. "About time a Malfoy did something decent." They travel through the secret passage into the Room of Requirement, where Neville and the other students have been hiding, resisting the Carrow's regime. The reception Draco gets from the DA members is mixed at best. Seamus looks ready to hex him on sight. Dean is coldly hostile. But Neville, brave, changed Neville, steps forward and says that if Harry trusts him, that's enough. If Draco's here to fight, they need everyone they can get. Ginny arrives and immediately hugs Harry, then eyes Draco warily. She doesn't trust him, not completely, but she doesn't attack either. Luna, already in the room, smiles at Draco like they're old friends. "Hermione's back in the Room of Requirement," she says dreamily. "Isn't it nice how we all keep ending up in the same places?" It's such a Luna thing to say that Draco actually smiles. They search for the diadem, the lost Ravenclaw artifact that Harry believes is the Horcrux. It's in the Room of Hidden Things, that vast cavern of lost objects accumulated over centuries. Draco knows this room. He hid here during 6th year, working on the Vanishing Cabinet. The memory feels like it belongs to a different person. They search through mountains of junk, and then Draco spots it. The diadem sitting on a bust, unassuming and ancient. But before they can retrieve it, before they can destroy it, Crabbe, Goyle, and Zabini appear. Draco's former friends, his fellow Slytherins, here to stop them, to capture Harry Potter and earn the Dark Lord's favor. Draco steps in front of Harry instinctively, wand raised against boys he grew up with. Crabbe sneers at him, calls him blood traitor, calls him worse. Goyle looks confused, hurt even. They were friends once, in the way that Slytherins are friends, bonded by house and blood status and shared cruelty. Now Draco stands on the opposite side, defending Harry Potter, and they can't understand it. Draco tries to explain, tries to tell them that Voldemort will destroy them all, that there's still time to choose differently. But Crabbe isn't listening. He casts Fiendfire, the cursed fire that consumes everything, and the Room of Hidden Things becomes an inferno. The fire is alive, taking the shapes of beasts, chasing them through the mountains of objects. Everything is burning, melting, destroyed. They run, desperate, and Draco sees Goyle trapped, paralyzed by fear as the flames approach. He doesn't think. He just moves, grabbing Goyle, pulling him onto a broomstick with Harry and Ron. They fly through smoke and flames. The diadem still in Hermione's bag, and barely escape as the Room of Requirement seals itself against the cursed fire. Crabbe doesn't make it out. The boy Draco grew up with, who sat next to him in classes, who followed him around like a loyal dog, dies screaming in flames of his own creation. Draco vomits when they land safely, his whole body shaking. Goyle stares at him, uncomprehending. "You saved me," he says. "Why?" "Because we're not them," Draco answers. "We don't have to be them." The Battle of Hogwarts begins in earnest. Voldemort's forces attack, and the Order, the DA, the teachers, everyone who can fight, defends. Draco fights alongside people he once tormented. He saves Seamus from a Death Eater's curse. He shields Dennis Creevey, that tiny, annoying kid, from falling debris. He duels alongside Hermione, their combined knowledge of magic making them a formidable team. When he sees Death Eaters he knows, people his family entertained at dinner parties, he doesn't hesitate. He fights them. He stuns Yaxley. He disarms Roll. He faces down Amicus Carrow and hits him with a spell that sends the man flying into a wall. Every curse he throws at Death Eaters is vengeance for what they made him, for what they tried to turn him into, for Dobby and Crabbe and every broken thing this war has created. Then he sees his mother. Narcissa is there in the battle and she's not fighting. She's searching, her wand down, her face desperate. She's looking for him. Their eyes meet across the chaos and Draco runs to her. They collide in the middle of the battlefield, holding each other while curses fly overhead. She tells him his father escaped Azkaban in the chaos, that Lucius is here somewhere, fighting for Voldemort. She tells him she can't do this anymore, can't pretend, can't watch more people die for a madman's vision of purity. Draco tells her to leave, to run, to get somewhere safe. But she shakes her head. She won't leave him. Not again. If he's fighting here, then so is she. Mother and son stand together, and when Death Eaters approach, Narcissa Malfoy raises her wand and fights against everything her family stood for. The battle rages on. People fall. Fred Weasley dies, and Draco watches the Weasley family's grief with a hollow chest. Lupin and Tonks fall, and Draco remembers Tonks trying to be kind to him at Grimmauld Place. Remembers Lupin's patient questioning. Colin Creevey, barely old enough to be there, dies with his camera still around his neck. Lavender Brown is savaged by Greyback, and though Hermione and Draco manage to drive the werewolf off, she's badly wounded. The cost of this war is written in bodies, in blood, in the screams of the wounded. Draco understands now why Harry looked so tired all the time, why Hermione cried so often. This is what fighting costs, everything. Then comes the hour when Voldemort calls for a pause, demands that Harry surrender himself. The boy who lived walks into the Forbidden Forest and everyone knows he's not coming back. Draco wants to stop him, wants to say something, but what is there to say? Harry's face is peaceful, resigned. He knows what he has to do. He walks to his death with more courage than Draco has ever possessed, and Draco hates it. Hates that Harry is good enough, brave enough, stupid enough to sacrifice himself. When Hagrid carries Harry's body out of the forest, when Voldemort proclaims his victory, something inside Draco shatters. They lost. Harry is dead. It was all for nothing, but then Neville kills the snake. Then Harry moves, alive, impossibly alive. The battle erupts again, and this time it's different. This time they're fighting with hope instead of desperation. Draco sees his father in the crowd, Lucius looking lost and afraid, and their eyes meet. His father reaches toward him, mouth opening, but Draco turns away. He can't save Lucius, can't forgive him. Not yet, maybe not ever. His mother, though, she's fighting with a ferocity that surprises everyone. She duels Dolohov and wins. She shields students with her body. She has chosen her side at last, and it's not the side of blood purity or family legacy. It's the side that has her son. The final confrontation between Harry and Voldemort happens in the Great Hall, everyone watching. The Dark Lord offers Harry one last chance to join him, and Harry laughs. Harry tells Voldemort about the Horcruxes, about how they've destroyed them all, about Snape's true loyalty, about the wand, the Elder Wand's allegiance. Draco's heart stops when Harry explains about the wand recognizing Draco as its master after he disarmed Dumbledore. That makes Draco the most valuable person in the room to Voldemort, the key to the wand's power. But Harry won his duel against Draco at Malfoy Manor, which means Harry is the true master now. The logic is complex and terrible, and Draco realizes how close he came to being Voldemort's target. How his one failed mission on the tower changed everything. Voldemort casts the killing curse. Harry casts Expelliarmus. The wand won't kill its master, and the spell rebounds, and Tom Riddle dies. Just dies. Crumples to the ground like any mortal. And it's over. The war ends not with a grand explosion, but with a body hitting the floor. The silence that follows is deafening. Then someone cheers. Then everyone is cheering, crying, hugging, celebrating. Draco stands apart from it, not sure he belongs in this victory, not sure he's earned it. But Harry finds him in the crowd. Harry looks at him, exhausted and grieving and alive, and nods. It's a small gesture, barely noticeable in the chaos. But it means everything. It means you were part of this. It means you helped. It means welcome home. The aftermath of the war is complicated. The Ministry has to rebuild. Trials have to be held. Death Eaters have to be judged. Draco knows he'll face trial, knows that joining the Order doesn't erase what he did before. He let Death Eaters into Hogwarts. People died because of his actions. He's prepared to face consequences, to accept punishment. But Harry testifies at his trial. Hermione does too. Ron, grudgingly but firmly, tells the Wizengamot that Malfoy fought at Hogwarts, that he saved lives, that he earned a second chance. Even Neville speaks on his behalf. The trial is still brutal. Families of victims confront him, and Draco doesn't defend himself, doesn't make excuses. He just apologizes over and over, knowing words aren't enough but having nothing else to offer. The verdict is community service and probation. He'll spend the next 5 years working to rebuild what the war destroyed. He'll help restore Hogwarts. He'll work with Muggle-born reintegration programs. He'll be monitored, watched, always one mistake away from Azkaban. It's fair, he thinks. It's more mercy than he deserves. His mother is pardoned fully. Her actions during the Battle of Hogwarts, particularly her lie to Voldemort about Harry being dead in the forest, That single act of defiance saves her. Lucius isn't so lucky. His father goes to Azkaban for a long sentence and Draco doesn't visit. Maybe someday he'll be able to face Lucius, to have that conversation. But not yet. The wound is too fresh, the betrayal too deep. Draco spends his community service working alongside Luna to renovate Hogwarts. They repair the castle together, stone by stone, fixing what the war broke. Luna talks to him about strange creatures and impossible things, and somehow it's exactly what he needs. She doesn't judge him, doesn't demand explanations or apologies. She just accepts that he's trying to be better, and that's enough. They become friends, real friends, in a way Draco never had before. Hermione visits sometimes to help with the magical theory behind the more complex repairs. She and Draco have long debates about spell work that Ron finds incomprehensible and Harry finds amusing. Ron still doesn't like him much, probably never will, but there's a grudging respect there. They saved each other's lives multiple times. That counts for something. Harry goes to Auror training, and Draco is surprised when he gets a letter inviting him to Grimmauld Place for dinner. It's awkward at first. Creature serves them food, and Draco doesn't know what to say to his former enemy in his former enemy's house. But Harry asks about the Hogwarts repairs, talks about Auror training, mentions that he's struggling with some dark artifact identification that Draco might know about. It's normal, almost painfully normal, and Draco realizes this is what making amends looks like. Not grand gestures or dramatic apologies, just showing up, being present, slowly building something new from the ashes of the old. Ginny joins them for dinner, and she's less forgiving than Harry, which is fair. She lost Fred. She fought in a war while barely 17. She has every right to her anger, but she's also pragmatic. She asks Draco pointed questions about Death Eater tactics for an article she's writing for the Prophet. She's become a journalist, using her experience to tell true stories about the war, refusing to let history be sanitized. Draco gives her honest answers, even when they reflect badly on him. She nods, satisfied, and tells him that honesty is more valuable than likability. He's not sure if it's a compliment or an insult, but he'll take it. Years pass. Draco completes his community service. He attends trials and speaks honestly about what he saw, who did what, helping the Ministry bring remaining Death Eaters to justice. He helps develop programs to identify and rehabilitate young people drawn to dark magic, using his own experience to understand what they're going through. He becomes surprisingly a teacher, not at Hogwarts, but at a small school for students who struggle with dark impulses, who come from Death Eater families and need guidance to choose differently. He's good at it. He understands these kids in ways others don't. He knows the seduction of power, the fear of disappointing your family, the terrible weight of expectations. He helps them find another way. He dates occasionally, but nothing serious. His reputation makes relationships complicated. Some people see him as the reformed Death Eater, a symbol of redemption. Others see him as a traitor to his blood, or worse, a traitor to the Dark Lord who should have been locked up. He exists in this strange liminal space, not fully trusted by either side, always having to prove himself. It's exhausting, but it's also right. He doesn't deserve easy forgiveness. He has to earn trust back, piece by piece, choice by choice, day by day. His mother rebuilds her life too, distancing herself from the Malfoy name's dark legacy, working quietly with Cursebreaker teams to identify and neutralize dark artifacts hidden in old pure-blood estates. They have dinner once a week, just the two of them, and never talk about Lucius. Draco reconnects with Blaise Zabini, one of the few Slytherins who stayed neutral during the war. They have coffee sometimes, and Blaise tells him about the other Slytherins, about who ended up where. Pansy married Goyle and they moved to Italy, wanting nothing to do with Britain's magical community anymore. Daphne Greengrass works at the Ministry in International Relations. Theonard is in Azkaban for refusing to denounce the Death Eater ideology. The Slytherin class of Draco's year scattered to the winds, broken by war and ideology and choices they made when they were too young to understand the consequences. Blaise asks Draco if he regrets it, switching sides, losing everything. Draco thinks about it and realizes he doesn't. He lost Malfoy Manor, lost his father's approval, lost his place in pure-blood society. But he gained something more valuable. He gained himself, the person he was always capable of being, if he'd just had the courage to choose it. 10 years after the war, there's a Hogwarts reunion. McGonagall, now headmistress, invites everyone who fought in the Battle of Hogwarts. Draco almost doesn't go, certain he won't be welcome. But Luna sends him a letter written in her distinctive looping handwriting. "You should come," it says. "You belong here too. You fought for Hogwarts. That makes you ours." So he goes, anxious and uncertain, and finds that most people treat him normally. Some avoid him, and that's fine. But others nod, say hello, even shake his hand. He talks to Neville, now herbology professor, about the venomous tentacula that's growing out of control in Greenhouse 3. He helps Hermione, now Minister for Magic, brainstorm solutions for reforming Azkaban's treatment of prisoners. He watches Ron try to wrangle his and Hermione's children, who are running wild through the castle, and feels a strange pang of something that might be envy. Harry finds him on the astronomy tower, the place where everything changed. They stand in silence for a while, looking out over the grounds. Harry asks if Draco ever thinks about that night, about what would have happened if he'd made the other choice, if he'd killed Dumbledore as ordered. Draco says he thinks about it constantly, about how close he came to damning himself forever, to becoming exactly what Voldemort wanted him to be. Harry admits that he thinks about it too, about how one moment of mercy, one choice to spare a life, created a ripple that changed everything. Without Draco's intel, without his help at Malfoy Manor, without Narcissa's lie that was only possible because Draco had already defected, things might have ended very differently. They're both alive because Draco couldn't kill an old man on a tower, because he chose mercy when cruelty was easier. They talk about the future. Harry mentions that the Auror office is looking for someone to train new recruits in identifying dark magic, someone who understands it from the inside. It's a subtle job offer, and Draco knows it. He asks if Harry really trusts him with that, after everything. Harry looks at him with those green eyes that see too much and says, trust has to be given eventually, or it never exists. Draco has spent 10 years proving himself. Maybe it's time to stop punishing himself and start actually living. Draco says he'll think about it, and Harry nods, satisfied. They stand there as the sun sets over Hogwarts, two men who should have been enemies, who briefly were, and who became something more complicated. Not quite friends, but not friends either. Two people bound together by war and choice, and the strange alchemy of redemption. The story of Draco Malfoy joining the Order of the Phoenix is not a simple tale of villain to hero. It's more complicated than that, messier and more real. It's about a boy raised in darkness who saw a glimpse of light and chose to stumble toward it, even knowing it meant losing everything. It's about the people who gave him that chance, who extended mercy when they had every right to demand justice. It's about how wars don't have clear good guys and bad guys, just people making choices, some good and some terrible, all of them living with the consequences. Draco lost his family name's prestige, lost his father's love, lost the world he knew, but he gained his humanity. He gained the ability to look at himself in the mirror without flinching. He gained the knowledge that he chose to be better, that when it mattered most, he picked mercy over cruelty. The wizarding world's perception of Draco remains divided. Some see him as proof that people can change, that even those raised in hatred can choose love. Others see him as a Death Eater who only switched sides when it was convenient, who should never be trusted. Both perspectives have merit. Draco did terrible things. He can never undo the pain he caused, can never bring back the people who died because he opened Hogwarts to Death Eaters. But he also risked everything to fight against Voldemort, saved lives, gave the Order crucial intelligence. The truth is complicated, and Draco has learned to live with that complication. He doesn't demand forgiveness. He just tries, every day, to be someone worthy of the second chance he was given. His relationship with his mother remains the one uncomplicated good thing in his life. Narcissa chose her son over everything, and that choice saved them both. They build a new life together, one not based on blood purity or social standing, but on genuine love and mutual support. She tells him stories about the Black family that he never knew, about the relatives who rebelled, who chose differently, who were burned off the family tree for daring to love Muggleborns or marry Muggles. She tells him that he comes from a long line of rebels, actually, though the Malfoys tried to breed it out. Maybe it was inevitable that he would break free eventually. Maybe it was in his blood all along, just waiting for the right moment to emerge. Draco eventually takes the Auror training position Harry offered. It's strange being in the Ministry, working for the government, teaching young witches and wizards how to identify and combat dark magic. Some of his students know who he is, know his history. He doesn't hide it. On the first day of every class, he tells them his story. Not a sanitized version, but the truth. I was a Death Eater, he says. I did terrible things. I believed terrible things. I hurt people. And then I chose differently, and it was the hardest thing I ever did. And I had to spend years earning back even a fraction of trust. He tells them this not to glorify his redemption, but to illustrate how easy it is to fall into darkness, and how hard it is to climb back out. Dark magic isn't just spells and curses. It's a mindset, a way of seeing the world. Once you start seeing people as less than human, once you start believing you're superior, that's when the real darkness begins. His classes are popular, surprisingly. His students appreciate his honesty, his refusal to pretend he's some hero. He teaches them practical defense, how to recognize dark artifacts, how to resist imperious curses, all the things he learned from both sides of the war. But more than that, he teaches them about choice, about how every decision matters, how small cruelties build into larger ones, how hatred is taught and can be unlearned. He shows them that it's never too late to choose differently, but also that choosing differently comes with costs. He doesn't sugarcoat it. Redemption isn't clean or easy. It's painful and messy, and sometimes you never fully achieve it. But trying is still worth it. Years turn into decades. The generation that fought in the war grows older. They have children, build careers, create lives in the peace they fought for. Draco watches Harry's children go to Hogwarts. James, Albus, Lily. He meets them occasionally when he visits the school for his work. Albus, sorted into Slytherin, looks at Draco with curiosity. Harry's told him stories, apparently, about how people can change, about how houses don't define you, about how his father's old enemy became someone fighting for the same things they all believed in. It's surreal hearing a Potter child talk about him with something like admiration. Draco tells Albus that Slytherin is a good house, can be a great house, if you choose to use ambition and cunning for good instead of evil. The boy nods seriously, and Draco sees a bit of Harry in him, that same determination to be better. He attends Order of the Phoenix reunions, though he always feels like an interloper. He was a member for such a brief time, and his contribution, while significant, came from such a dark place. But the others include him. Neville claps him on the back and buys him drinks. Luna introduces him to her husband and children with genuine affection. Hermione discusses policy with him, valuing his input on laws regarding former Death Eaters and rehabilitation. Ron still makes the occasional joke at his expense, but there's no real heat to it anymore. It's almost friendly now, almost affectionate. They're all survivors of the same trauma, and that binds them in ways that transcend their past animosity. Ginny, now a famous Quidditch journalist and commentator, interviews him once for a retrospective on the war. She asks hard questions, doesn't let him hide behind polite euphemisms. What was it like betraying everyone you knew? How do you live with the guilt? Do you think you deserve the life you have now? Draco answers honestly. It was terrifying. The guilt never fully goes away. And no, he doesn't think he deserves peace, but he's grateful for it anyway, and he tries to honor it by helping others. The interview is published and causes controversy. Some praise his honesty, others think he's still making excuses. Draco doesn't read the responses. He learned long ago that he'll never satisfy everyone. He can only satisfy himself, can only try to live up to his own standards, and those standards, forged in fire and regret, are higher than they ever were when he was a Death Eater. He writes a book eventually, a memoir of sorts. Not for fame or money, but because younger generations need to understand how fascism takes root, how good people can be twisted into doing evil, how the path to darkness is paved with small compromises and justified cruelties. He writes about his childhood, about the casual bigotry of pure-blood society, about how hatred was woven into every lesson, every dinner conversation, every value his parents taught him. He writes about the tower, about Dumbledore's eyes, about the moment he chose mercy. He writes about the Order, about learning to trust people he was taught to hate, about fighting alongside them. And he writes about the cost, the nightmares, the people who will never forgive him, the family he lost, the man he had to become. The book is titled From Darkness, A Death Eater's Journey to the Light, and it becomes required reading in many Hogwarts classes. Professor McGonagall assigns it in her Ethics of Magic course. Professor Flitwick uses it in his Charms classes when discussing the responsibility that comes with magical power. Even some Muggle Studies courses use it to illustrate how prejudice operates in magical society. Draco never expected his story to matter to anyone but himself, but teachers tell him that students are moved by it, that it helps them understand how easy it is to fall into extremism, and how hard but necessary it is to climb back out. He receives letters from young witches and wizards who grew up in pure-blood families, who were taught the same hate he was, thanking him for showing them there's another way. Not all the responses are positive, of course. Rita Skeeter writes a scathing review, suggesting the book is a calculated attempt to profit from war trauma. Some victims' families publish open letters condemning him for daring to tell his story when their loved ones can't tell theirs. These criticisms hurt deeply, but Draco doesn't respond to them. They're not wrong. He is profiting, in a sense, from a war where others lost everything. All he can do is donate the proceeds to war orphans' funds and memorial foundations, and hope that some good comes from his words. The criticism is part of his penance, part of the price he pays for being alive when so many others aren't. Draco starts mentoring young people from Death Eater families, kids whose parents are in Azkaban or who died in the war. He knows what it's like growing up with that legacy, that shame and anger and confusion. He helps them process their feelings, helps them understand that their parents' choices aren't their burden to carry. Some of these kids are angry, full of rage at the world that punished their families. Draco doesn't lecture them. He just tells his story over and over and lets them draw their own conclusions. Most eventually come around, choosing to build new lives separate from their family legacies. A few don't, clinging to the old ideologies, and those cases haunt Draco. He couldn't save everyone. He couldn't even save himself without help. But he keeps trying, because what else can he do? His friendship with Harry deepens in unexpected ways. They develop a tradition of meeting once a month at a quiet pub in Diagon Alley, just talking about life, about their kids growing up, about the complexities of living in the world they helped create. Harry confides his struggles with being the boy who lived, with people expecting him to have all the answers, to be a symbol rather than a person. Draco talks about living in the shadow of his past, about always being the reformed Death Eater. Never just Draco. They understand each other's prisons, even though those prisons are so different. Both of them are trapped by narratives larger than themselves, by histories they can't escape. They find comfort in that shared understanding, in being able to be honest with someone who gets it. Sometimes Hermione and Ron join them, and those evenings are chaotic and argumentative and strangely perfect. They debate magical theory and ministry policy and Quidditch. Ron still brings up that time Draco insulted Hermione in second year, but now it's almost a joke between them, the absurdity of children being so cruel over something as meaningless as blood status. Hermione has moved beyond it, though she doesn't let Draco forget either. She brings up his past when it's relevant, when he's being too complacent or comfortable, reminding him that redemption isn't a destination but a journey. He appreciates that about her, actually. She doesn't let him off the hook, doesn't let him forget what he did. She keeps him honest, keeps him striving to be better. Draco eventually enters politics, though he swore he never would. The ministry needs someone who understands both sides, someone who can bridge the gap between former Death Eaters' families and the rest of magical society. He becomes an advisor on reconciliation and reintegration, helping develop policies that neither excuse past crimes nor condemn people to endless punishment. It's delicate work, balancing justice with mercy, accountability with rehabilitation. He faces constant criticism from both sides. Some say he's too soft on former Death Eaters, others say he's betraying his own kind. He ignores both extremes and focuses on the work, on helping individuals rebuild their lives while ensuring they're held accountable for their actions. One of his proudest achievements is establishing the Second Chance program, offering education and job training to former Death Eaters who've served their sentences and want to reintegrate into society. It's controversial, but Draco argues persuasively that people who have no path forward will either hide in the shadows or return to extremism. Giving them opportunities, monitoring them, but also supporting them, reduces recidivism and helps heal the fractured magical community. The program isn't perfect. Some participants reoffend, and Draco faces intense scrutiny every time that happens. But the majority succeed finding jobs, building families, contributing to society. Those success stories are what keep him going when the criticism becomes overwhelming. He reconnects with Astoria Greengrass, Daphne's younger sister, at a ministry function. She's working in magical creature rights, and they bond over their shared desire to make the world better than it was. She knows his history, obviously everyone does, but she judges him on who he is now, not who he was. They date cautiously at first, both of them damaged by the war in different ways. Astoria lost friends in the battle. Watched Death Eaters destroy everything she loved about the magical world. Dating a former Death Eater should be unthinkable, but she sees past the label to the man beneath. She challenges him constantly, never letting him wallow in guilt or self-pity, pushing him to be better, do more, fight harder for the world they both want. They marry in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. Harry stands as Draco's best man, and the photo of them together, smiling, makes front page of the Prophet. Some praise it as a symbol of unity and forgiveness. Others condemn it as a betrayal. Draco and Harry laugh about it over fire whiskey at the reception. They've both stopped caring what the Prophet says. They know who they are to each other, what they survived together. That's enough, Narcissa cries during the ceremony, tears of joy at seeing her son happy, truly happy, for perhaps the first time in his life. She holds Astoria's hands and thanks her for seeing the good in Draco that took him so long to find in himself. Scorpius Malfoy is born 3 years later, and Draco holds his son with trembling hands, overwhelmed by love and terror. He's responsible for this tiny life, this innocent being who will carry the Malfoy name and all its baggage. He makes a vow, there in the hospital room, that Scorpius will grow up differently. He'll be taught to question, to think critically, to judge people by their character, not their blood. He'll know about his grandfather's crimes, about his father's past, but he won't be defined by them. He'll be free to become whoever he wants to be. Astoria squeezes his hand, understanding without words the weight of that moment. They're breaking a cycle of hatred that stretches back generations. It's terrifying and exhilarating and necessary. Raising Scorpius becomes Draco's greatest challenge and his greatest joy. He watches his son grow, intelligent and curious and kind. Everything Draco wasn't at that age. When Scorpius asks about the dark mark that still mars Draco's arm, faded but visible, Draco tells him the truth. He explains what it represents, what he did, why it was wrong. Scorpius listens with serious gray eyes and asks if people can really change. Draco tells him yes, but it takes work, constant work, every single day. You have to choose to be good over and over again, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Scorpius nods, processing this, and then asks if his father is good now. Draco pauses, considers the question honestly, and says he's trying to be. That's the best answer he can give. When Scorpius goes to Hogwarts, Draco is terrified. He knows how cruel children can be, knows his son will face prejudice because of the Malfoy name. He's proven right when Scorpius writes letters about the teasing, about being called a Death Eater's son, about students avoiding him. But Scorpius also writes about his friends, about Albus Potter who sits with him on the train and doesn't care about family legacies, about Rose Granger Weasley who helps him with potions and argues with anyone who says mean things about him. Draco reads these letters with tears in his eyes. The children of former enemies are friends now, are protecting each other, are building something new. It's everything he fought for, everything he hoped redemption might look like. The summer Scorpius turns 14. Draco takes him to Hogwarts and shows him the astronomy tower. He tells his son the full story of that night, every detail, holding nothing back. He shows Scorpius where he stood, where Dumbledore stood, what the choice felt like. Why does this matter? Scorpius asks. You chose right in the end. But Draco shakes his head. It matters because he almost didn't choose right. It matters because he was seconds away from becoming a murderer, from crossing a line he couldn't uncross. It matters because good choices aren't automatic or easy. They're hard, and you have to make them consciously, deliberately, even when everything in you wants to do the opposite. Scorpius looks at his father and says he understands, and Draco hopes that's true, hopes his son never has to face the kind of choice Draco faced on this tower. Draco's hair starts going gray in his 40s, and he doesn't bother to hide it. The gray feels earned, feels like evidence of years lived, mistakes made, lessons learned. He catches glimpses of his father in the mirror sometimes, in the line of his jaw, the set of his shoulders, and it used to terrify him. Now he sees it differently. He has Lucius features, but not his soul. The face might be similar, but the man behind it is different. That's what matters. He visits his father in Azkaban once, 15 years after the war. Lucius is old now, broken by imprisonment and defeat. They sit across from each other in the visiting room, and Draco waits for his father to speak first. Lucius asks about Narcissa, about Scorpius, about the family. His voice is thin, tired. Draco answers briefly, giving minimal details. Then Lucius says something unexpected. He says he's sorry. Sorry for the pressure he put on Draco. Sorry for the expectations. Sorry for raising him in darkness. He says he spent years in Azkaban thinking about where it all went wrong, and he's concluded that it started with him, with his ambition and pride and hatred. He says Draco was brave to choose differently, braver than Lucius ever was. It's not a complete apology. It doesn't excuse anything, but it's acknowledgement, and that's something. Draco sits with it for a long moment, then says he forgives him, not for Lucius' sake, but for his own. Holding on to that anger, that resentment, it only hurts himself. He forgives his father and then walks out of Azkaban and doesn't look back. Harry retires from the Auror office eventually, and Draco throws him a party. All their friends come, everyone who survived the war and built lives in its aftermath. They're middle-aged now, with gray hair and grandchildren and careers winding down. They tell old war stories, but the stories have changed with time. They're softer now, funnier, the sharp edges of trauma worn smooth by years of healing. Someone brings up the time Draco rode a dragon out of Gringotts, and everyone laughs, and Draco laughs with them. It feels good to laugh about it, to remember that moment of wild freedom. The war isn't gone, will never be fully gone, but they've survived it. They've built lives worth living. That's its own kind of victory. Neville, now retired from teaching, pulls Draco aside during the party. He tells Draco that he's been thinking about that last year, about Draco's transformation, about what it meant for all of them. He says that watching a Death Eater become one of them, watching him choose mercy and courage over hatred and fear, that gave Neville hope during the darkest days. If Draco Malfoy could change, could grow beyond his raising, then maybe they could all grow beyond their traumas, their fears, their worst selves. Draco doesn't know what to say to that. He never saw himself as inspirational, never wanted to be. But Neville's words settle into his chest, warm and healing. Maybe that's what redemption looks like. Not erasing the past, but using it to inspire better futures. Luna publishes a book about the war from the perspective of lesser-known participants. She interviews people who were there but whose stories are rarely told. House elves who fought, centaurs who defended the forest, students who resisted the Caros regime, and Draco. She interviews him for hours, asking questions no one else does. What did hope feel like when you'd been raised without it? What was it like fighting alongside people who had every reason to hate you? How did you learn to trust yourself again? Her questions cut deep, but they're necessary. When the book comes out, Draco's chapter is titled, The Boy Who Chose. It's a deliberate echo of Harry's title, and Draco appreciates Luna's subtle point. They both chose in their own ways. Choices matter more than destiny. As Draco ages, as he approaches his 60s, he starts thinking about legacy. What will he be remembered for? The scared boy on the tower? The Death Eater who switched sides? The man who spent decades trying to atone? He decides it doesn't matter. Let history judge him however it wants. He knows who he is. He knows what he did, both terrible and good. He knows he spent his life trying to be better, to help others, to break cycles of hatred. That has to be enough. He can't control how he's remembered. He can only control what he does with the time he has left. He starts writing letters to Scorpius, to his grandchildren, to be opened after he's gone. In them he writes everything he wants them to know, about choice and consequence, about how easy it is to fall into darkness and how hard it is to climb out, about the importance of questioning authority, of standing up for what's right even when it costs everything, about how love, real love, is stronger than any magic, any curse, any war. He writes about their grandmother Narcissa's courage, about how she chose her son over her world and saved them both. He writes about the Order, about Harry and Hermione and Ron and all the others who gave him a chance when they didn't have to. He writes about mistakes and forgiveness and the long, hard road of redemption. On Scorpius's 30th birthday, Draco gives him something he's kept hidden for decades. The wand he used on the tower that night, the wand he pointed at Dumbledore and couldn't bring himself to use. He's kept it all these years as a reminder, a physical representation of the choice that changed everything. Now he gives it to Scorpius with instructions to break it, to destroy it, to let it symbolize the end of that dark chapter. But Scorpius surprises him. He says he wants to keep it, wants to preserve it, not as a weapon, but as a memorial. A reminder that people can choose mercy even in their darkest moments, that wands can be laid down instead of raised. That every person has the capacity for both cruelty and compassion, and we get to choose which one wins. Draco holds his son and cries, overwhelmed by pride and love and gratitude that Scorpius understands, truly understands, what that wand represents. The 50th anniversary of the Battle of Hogwarts is commemorated with a massive ceremony. Survivors gather at the castle, old and gray, but still here, still breathing, still fighting for the world they built. Draco stands with Harry, Hermione, Ron, Neville, Luna, Ginny, all of them aged but unbowed. They light candles for those who fell. Fred, Tonks, Lupin, Colin, Lavender, so many others. The next generation lights candles too, for people they never met but whose sacrifice gave them life. Scorpius stands with Albus Potter and Rose Granger Weasley, lighting candles together, united in a way their parents' generation had to fight to achieve. It's beautiful and heartbreaking and perfect. McGonagall, ancient now but still sharp, gives a speech about courage and sacrifice and the price of freedom. Then she does something unexpected. She calls Draco forward, along with several other former Death Eaters who changed sides and fought for Hogwarts. She talks about how the war wasn't simple, how people made terrible choices and then different choices, how redemption is possible but never easy. She thanks them for their courage in choosing differently, for proving that people can grow beyond their raising. The applause is mixed. Some people clap enthusiastically. Others remain silent, still unable to forgive. Draco doesn't expect universal acceptance. He just bows his head in acknowledgement and returns to his place beside Harry. That night, the survivors party in the Great Hall like they're young again. Music plays, drinks flow, stories are told. Draco dances with Astoria, with Narcissa, with Hermione, who surprises him by asking. As they dance, she tells him she's proud of him, proud of how far he's come, proud of the work he's done. Coming from Hermione, the girl he tortured with slurs and cruelty, it means everything. He tells her he's sorry again, for the millionth time, and she says she knows. She forgave him years ago. Now he needs to forgive himself. It's advice he's heard before but never fully internalized. Maybe it's time to try. As the party winds down, as people start disapparating home, Harry finds Draco on the astronomy tower. Again, they always end up here, at the place where everything changed. They look out over the grounds, bathed in moonlight, peaceful and perfect. Harry asks if Draco ever regrets it, choosing to spare Dumbledore, choosing the path that led here. Draco thinks about it honestly. He regrets what he did before that moment. He regrets the cruelty, the hatred, the pain he caused. But that moment on the tower, lowering his wand, choosing mercy? No, he's never regretted that. Not even for a second. Everything that followed, all the pain and struggle and growth, it was worth it to know he chose right when it mattered most. Harry nods, satisfied. He tells Draco that the world is better because he made that choice. That lives were saved, families stayed whole. Futures were possible because Draco Malfoy found courage he didn't know he possessed. Harry says he's grateful their sons are friends, grateful that the next generation doesn't have to carry their hatreds, grateful that they got to become the men they were meant to be, instead of the men the war tried to make them. Draco agrees quietly. They stand there in companionable silence, two old soldiers who survived, who built peace from ashes, who proved that people can change if they choose to. The moon rises higher, and eventually they go back downstairs to their families, to their lives, to the world they helped create. Draco Malfoy lives to be 78 years old. He dies peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by family, having spent his final decades working for reconciliation and peace. His funeral is attended by hundreds. Former Order members come to pay respects. Students he taught stand in the back, crying. The Death Eater families he helped rehabilitate send flowers. Harry gives the eulogy, speaking about redemption and choice and the courage it takes to admit you were wrong. He talks about the scared boy on a tower who chose mercy and how that single choice rippled out through decades, changing the course of history in small but significant ways. He talks about his friend because that's what Draco became eventually, impossibly, against all odds. His friend. Scorpius spreads his father's ashes at Hogwarts, in the gardens where Draco spent so many hours during his community service, repairing what the war broke. It feels right to return him here, to the place where he changed, where he grew, where he became someone new. As the ashes scatter on the wind, Scorpius thinks about his father's lessons, about choice and consequence, about how every moment is an opportunity to be better than you were, about how redemption isn't a destination but a journey, and you have to keep walking that path even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He thinks about the letters his father wrote him, the wisdom shared, the love given so freely despite everything. And he thinks about the wand, still preserved in a case at home, reminder that people can lay down their weapons and choose mercy instead. The wizarding world continues without Draco Malfoy, as worlds do. New conflicts arise, new challenges emerge. But the generation he helped raise, the students he taught, the policies he helped implement, they all carry forward his lessons. That prejudice is taught and can be unlearned. That people are capable of both terrible evil and profound good. That blood status is meaningless, that what matters is choice, character, courage. The Malfoy name, once synonymous with dark magic and bigotry, becomes something more complicated. A symbol of redemption, yes, but also a reminder of how far people can fall and how hard they have to work to climb back up. It's not a comfortable legacy, but it's an honest one. Years after Draco's death, his memoir is still assigned in schools. New generations read about the boy who almost became a murderer and chose mercy instead. They read about his journey from Death Eater to Order member, his struggles with guilt and redemption, his decades of work trying to atone for his past. Teachers use his story to illustrate that people are not static, that we're all capable of change if we choose it, that the most courageous thing you can do is admit you were wrong and commit to being better. Some students are inspired, some are skeptical. All of them learn that morality is complex, that good and evil aren't always clearly defined, and that the choices we make in moments of crisis define us more than the circumstances we're born into. A statue is eventually erected at Hogwarts, not of Draco specifically, but of all those who changed sides during the war. It shows figures laying down wands, choosing peace, turning away from darkness. Draco is among them, forever captured in bronze at the moment he lowered his wand on the tower. The plaque reads, "To those who chose mercy over cruelty, courage over fear, love over hatred. May we all have such strength when tested." Students walk past it every day, most without thinking much about it. But some stop and look, wondering about the stories behind those bronze faces, about what it took to make such choices, about whether they would be brave enough to do the same. In the end, the question of what would have happened if Draco Malfoy joined the Order of the Phoenix is answered not just in battles won or intelligence provided, but in lives lived. In Scorpius Malfoy growing up free from the prejudices that defined his grandfather. In students learning that change is possible. In policies that emphasize rehabilitation over eternal punishment. In the friendships that bridged old divides. In Harry Potter standing at his former enemy's funeral and calling him friend. In every small choice for kindness over cruelty, mercy over vengeance, understanding over hatred. That's what Draco's choice on the tower created. Not just a different outcome to the war, though that mattered, but a different world, slowly built through decades of hard work and harder choices, where people aren't defined solely by where they come from, but by who they choose to become. The story ends where it began, on the astronomy tower at Hogwarts. But now it's peaceful, empty of death and fear. Students come here to study, to kiss, to look at stars and dream about their futures. None of them know about the choice made here decades ago. The wand that was lowered instead of raised, the mercy chosen over murder. But they benefit from it anyway, living in a world shaped by that choice, attending a school where the mistakes of the past are taught honestly and the possibility of redemption is woven into every lesson. The tower stands as it has for centuries, witness to countless moments of choice and consequence. And if you listen carefully on quiet nights, maybe you can still hear the echo of that long ago moment when a scared boy chose courage and everything changed.